He dumped me in public and said I should be grateful he even dated me. This morning, my phone exploded with 13 missed calls. And honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that happened this past weekend. It keeps replaying in my head like a bad movie, and part of me keeps wondering if I somehow dreamt the whole thing. But nope, my overdrawn credit card and the chocolate stains on my couch confirm it was all very real. To give you some background, I had been dating Ryan for 2 years. 2 full years, not a short fling or something casual. We had built routines together, Sunday Netflix binges, cringy family dinners over the holidays, even this ridiculous couples yoga class he insisted we try. We both sucked at it, by the way. Things weren't perfect, when are they ever? But I genuinely believed we were solid. We'd even tossed around the idea of moving in together this summer. Of course, Ryan had his irritating little quirks. He'd leave his socks absolutely everywhere, text constantly during movies, and make these helpful remarks about how I looked. Comments like "that shirt makes your arms look bigger," or "have you considered a different hairstyle?" I'd always brushed it off as him being brutally honest. Past me thought that was adorable. Spoiler, it was not. Anyway, last Friday he messaged me about a dinner with some coworkers. Ryan never included me in his work stuff before. He always said it wasn't professional or something, so I was genuinely excited. I even broke my budget and went shopping for a new outfit. I spent ages getting ready, full-on YouTube makeup tutorial, my high-end straightener only used for special occasions, the whole 9 yards. The restaurant was one of those ultra-pricey places downtown, the kind with microscopic portions, and no prices listed on the menu. Red flag number 1. When I arrived, Ryan was already seated with 2 of his work buddies, Leonard and Pablo. The moment I walked up I felt a weird tension. Ryan barely looked at me. He half stood up, muttered, "You're late," and sat right back down. I was literally 2 minutes late because parking was an absolute nightmare. I sat down and the first thing he did was glance at my outfit and say, "Oh, you wore that." Not in a hushed tone either. His friends exchanged a look, and I could feel my cheeks burning. For context, I was wearing a dark blue dress. I felt really confident, in nothing too flashy or inappropriate. I tried to lighten the mood with, "Did I miss the dress code memo?" But he just shrugged and told me they'd already ordered starters. What followed was a painfully long hour of Ryan dominating the conversation with work talk I couldn't follow. His friends nodded like bobbleheads. Anytime I tried to chime in, Ryan would talk over me or explain why I was wrong. I mentioned something about a difficult customer at my retail job, and Ryan cut in with, "She doesn't really understand how things work in the real business world," waving his hand like retail is somehow beneath him. I've been a store manager for 3 years. I sat there wondering if Ryan had always been this condescending, and I just never noticed, or if he was putting on a show for his colleagues. Either way, it was awful. Then Leonard asked how we met. I started telling the story how his coworker Vanessa, who's also my best friend, introduced us, and Ryan interrupted mid-sentence. Yeah, Vanessa felt bad for her. I was doing a favor, really. Then he laughed. My stomach dropped. That is not how we met. Vanessa had warned me about Ryan's overinflated ego, sure, but she also said he had a decent heart underneath all that. Spoiler again, he did not. I excused myself to the restroom to avoid crying in front of them. I locked myself in a stall and frantically texted Vanessa, "WTF is happening?" Mid-text, I got a notification. Ryan had tagged himself at the restaurant on Instagram with the caption, "Boys Night Out," like I wasn't even there. Vanessa called immediately, but I sent her to voicemail. I didn't want anyone in the restaurant hearing me break down. I washed my face, redid my makeup, and gave myself a little pep talk in the mirror. Just make it through dinner with your dignity intact. When I returned, the guys were laughing about something, but their laughter cut off the moment I sat back down. Great. Then came the entrees. I'd ordered pasta, the cheapest dish on the menu, because I was already nervous about the cost. Ryan wouldn't let it go. He cracked jokes the whole time. Carb loading for a marathon, and that's a bold choice for your body type. Every comment was like a tiny paper cut. I barely touched my food, just moved it around my plate while counting the minutes until I could leave. Then Pablo asked Ryan something about a presentation, and Ryan launched into a story about how his boss loved his ideas, and how he was basically running the whole project now. Something snapped into place. Just the week before, Ryan had been freaking out about that very same presentation. He told me his part was only 5 minutes, and that he was nervous. Now suddenly he was the star. It felt like he was creating an alternate reality, where he was the hero of every story. Then came the check. The waiter placed it in front of us, and Ryan picked it up, glanced at it and slid it across the table to me. I thought he was just showing me the total. But then he said, words I will never forget. You know what? I don't think this is working. I stared at him, waiting for a joke. There wasn't one. I've been trying, but I'm just not attracted to you anymore, he said. I think we should break up, right there, in the middle of the restaurant, in front of his coworkers. After 2 years together. I blinked, completely stunned. Are you serious right now? This is how you're ending it. He stood up, shrugged on his jacket, and dropped one more verbal grenade on his way out. A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you. Then he walked out, laughing with Leonard and Pablo, leaving me alone with a $347 bill for their overpriced Wagyu appetizers and artisanal cocktails. The waiter returned with a look of pity that made everything feel even worse. I paid with my credit card, which by the way, I'm still paying off from Christmas, and somehow made it to my car without falling apart. I called Vanessa from the parking lot, sobbing so hard she couldn't understand me at first. She rushed over to my apartment with a pint of Ben & Jerry's and a bottle of wine, absolute MVP behavior. Through ugly crying and cookie dough-fueled venting, I told her everything. She was furious. I had to stop her from driving to Ryan's place that night, to confront him. That's when things took a turn. Vanessa kept circling back to what Ryan had said during dinner, about the presentation, the project, his role at work. Eventually she said, Sabrina, I hate to tell you this, but Ryan isn't who he says he is at work. And she was right. Turns out, Ryan wasn't some rising star in marketing, he was an assistant. His job, getting coffee and scheduling meetings. All those business trips? Fabricated. That big presentation? He was the one putting together the slides, not leading anything. The title on his LinkedIn? Complete fiction. I felt like the biggest fool alive. For 2 years this guy had been living in a fantasy world, and I never saw it. What else had he lied about? That night, after Vanessa left, I went full detective mode. I scrolled through every old message, every photo, every scrap of digital interaction. So many discrepancies I had brushed off now, screamed for attention. Stories that didn't line up. Nights he said he was working late, but his location was across town. Comments about money that never quite made sense. I barely slept. I couldn't stop replaying that humiliating scene at the restaurant. How small and disposable he made me feel. Then around 3 a.m., I got a message from an unknown number. Hey, it's Cody from Ryan's office. Vanessa gave me your number. There are things you should know. That's when it all started to unravel.
First off, thank you. Seriously. Reading all the kind comments on my last post made me cry again, but in a good way this time. I didn't expect so many strangers to care, and the support meant everything. A lot of you asked for an update, so here's what went down next in this completely unhinged real-life soap opera I somehow ended up starring in. After Cody, one of Ryan's coworkers, reached out and told me the truth about his job, I spent the next few days in that weird post-breakup fog. You know the one, where you alternate between crying into a pint of ice cream and rage scrolling through old photos wondering if anything was real. My apartment turned into a disaster zone. Piles of dishes, mountains of laundry, about 7 crumpled DoorDash bags because I couldn't even think about cooking. The worst part was how many times I caught myself wanting to text Ryan. I'd remember a random inside joke or see something he would have found funny, and then, bam, I'd relive the entire humiliation all over again. My brain couldn't let go. It kept asking, did that really happen? And how did I not see any of this sooner? I'd been avoiding social media like the plague. I knew Ryan would post something obnoxious, and sure enough, when I finally caved and checked Instagram, there he was. Gym selfie, smug smirk, captioned level up, know your worth. The nerve. Vanessa came over that night with takeout, and found me wrapped in my comforter like a depressed burrito. She's been incredible through all this. Bringing food, listening to the same rant multiple times, never once saying I told you so, even though she definitely had her suspicions from the beginning. While we were eating, she showed me her text thread with Cody. Apparently they'd been talking a lot, and Cody had some serious dirt to spill. According to him, Ryan told everyone at work that he dumped me because I was clingy and obsessed with marriage. Excuse me, I was not the one who made a secret Pinterest board called Future Home Ideas. Ryan did. And when I asked about it, he said it was research for a project at work. But then Cody dropped a nuclear truth bomb. Ryan wasn't just lying about his job title. He was currently on probation at work for stealing credit for other people's ideas. If he messed up again, he was probably going to be fired. All those late nights at the office, panic-fueled scrambles to fix things before anyone noticed. The business trips, pure fiction. As I was processing all that, my phone rang. It was Tina, Ryan's mom. I hesitated but answered. She'd always been really kind to me, remembered my birthday, actually cared about my life. She sounded concerned and asked if everything was okay between Ryan and me. Apparently he told the family that we'd had a little fight, but things were fine. A little fight? I wanted to scream, but I kept it vague. Told her we were taking some time apart, and I didn't want to put her in the middle. Then she mentioned Ryan's upcoming birthday dinner on Saturday. The whole family was looking forward to it, and she couldn't wait to see me there. Yup, Ryan had told them we were still together. Not only that, we had big news to share at the dinner. I almost choked on my lomi. Vanessa looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Is he delusional, or just a pathological liar? She asked. Honestly, I didn't know, but that's when the idea formed. I wasn't going to ghost his family. They'd always been lovely to me, and they deserved to know the truth. But I wasn't going to create a scene either. I'd simply show up as invited, and let reality take care of the rest. The next day I met Cody for coffee. Slightly awkward since we technically only knew each other through Ryan, but he turned out to be really chill. He confirmed everything about Ryan's workplace lies. The team Ryan supposedly led, 2 interns, the big presentation he bragged about. Cody said Ryan was just operating the slideshow while their boss presented. Cody also said that Ryan often painted me as high maintenance at work. The irony? I had been paying for most of our dates toward the end. Ryan claimed to be between paychecks, which now I realize just meant he was financially irresponsible. Mid-convo, Cody got a text from their boss asking if he could help with an emergency task on Saturday evening. Cody was bummed because he'd made plans, but that's when I had the idea. What if you dropped something off at Ryan's parents' place during the birthday dinner? Perfect timing. Poetic justice. As we were ironing out the details, my phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. The first since the restaurant. We need to talk about what happened. I might have overreacted. Might have? I showed Cody, who nearly spat out his coffee. Overreacted is forgetting to text someone back, not dumping them in public and sticking them with a $300 check. I didn't reply. Let him stew. The next 2 days were a blur. I spent hours digging through old texts and photos, gathering receipts, cross-checking dates. I found photos he'd posted claiming to be at work events, except they were clearly stock images from his company website. I documented everything. Friday night, Vanessa came over to help pick an outfit. Part of me wanted to go full glam, rub it in his face, but we agreed that subtlety was better. We landed on a simple black dress that Ryan once called average, though I always got compliments when I wore it. Probably his way of keeping my confidence low. I barely slept that night. What if it all blew up? What if his family took his side? What if I froze? By Saturday morning, I had bitten every fingernail to the quick, and ran through 17 different scenarios in my head. At noon, another text from Ryan. Can't wait to see you tonight. Wear something nice. My parents are excited. I didn't answer. The afternoon was a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Vanessa helped with my hair, and gave me one last pep talk. At 5:30, I got in my car. My hands were shaking so badly I had to pull over and use a meditation app I'd downloaded months ago but never touched. Was this a mistake? Maybe I should have just blocked him and moved on. But then I pictured Ryan, sitting at that dinner table, spinning another one of his fantasy tales, maybe even painting himself as the victim, and my spine stiffened. At 6:15, fashionably late, just to irritate him, I pulled into the driveway. Several cars were already there. Looked like the whole family had come out. I checked my makeup in the mirror, took one last deep breath, and walked up to the door. Ryan's dad answered with a huge grin and a warm hug. The house smelled like Tina's signature pot roast. For a second I felt a pang of loss. I genuinely liked his family. This would probably be the last time I saw them. I turned the corner into the living room. There was Ryan, drink in hand, mid-laugh. He froze when he saw me. He clearly hadn't expected me to actually come, despite his text. His face was priceless. He approached with a stiff smile, and whispered, "You actually came. We need to talk." I responded loud enough for the room to hear. Of course. I wouldn't miss your birthday, especially after hearing you told your family we had big news to share. His face turned the color of chalk. Tina clapped her hands in excitement. Oh, is this what I think it is? His sister gave me a look. His dad joked about finally getting grandkids. Ryan gripped my elbow and tried to steer me down the hallway, but his mom called out, "Dinner's ready." Everyone moved to the table. As I sat down, my phone buzzed. "Cody, on my way. 15 minutes out." Ryan leaned toward me and hissed, "What are you doing?" I smiled sweetly. "I wouldn't miss telling your family about that lovely restaurant evening, Ryan. They'll love that story." The look on his face, absolutely worth every ounce of anxiety it took to walk through that door. Game on. So there I was, sitting at Ryan's family dinner surrounded by his parents, Tina and Ralph, his sister Kayla, his grandma, and two cousins whose names I always messed up. The table was piled high with Tina's signature pot roast, fluffy mashed potatoes I've literally dreamed about, and some fancy salad nobody was going to touch but everyone would pretend to admire. The first 20 minutes were painfully awkward. Ryan kept trying to control the conversation, tossing me nervous side eyes every time I opened my mouth. I just smiled politely, passed the bread basket, and took quiet satisfaction in the fact that his left eye twitched a little more every time I spoke. Tina did her best to keep things light. She asked about my job, my family, how my plants were doing. Then she mentioned how proud they all were of Ryan's big promotion. I nearly spit out my water. I glanced at Ryan, who was going a very alarming shade of beet red. He jumped in quickly, spinning some grand tale about how his team was smashing their targets and how his boss was grooming him for upper management. I watched silently, amused as he buried himself deeper in his own lies. Then Ralph, who rarely said much, asked about the Johnson account, something Ryan had apparently been bragging about to his dad. Ryan's response? Vague nonsense about strategic pivots and leveraging core competencies. It sounded like he'd copied and pasted a buzzword salad straight from LinkedIn. Kayla caught my eye from across the table. She's the fact-checker of the family, the one who'll pull out Google mid-argument just to prove a point. She raised one skeptical eyebrow at me like, "Is he serious right now?" That's when Tina brought up the big news. She smiled and asked if we wanted to share it with the whole family now, or wait until after dessert. Ryan nearly dropped his fork. His grandma, who's an unfiltered legend, chimed in with, "So are you two finally moving in together, or what?" Ryan said you were looking at places, which was news to me. The closest we ever got to that was discussing combining our Netflix subscriptions. Ryan started sweating and tried to redirect the conversation back to himself, talking about how his boss gave him a company card to cover business expenses. I couldn't resist. "Oh, speaking of dinners," I said sweetly, "Ryan took me to this incredible restaurant last week. Remember the one where you met up with Leonard and Pablo?" His expression shifted instantly, pale, panicked, speechless. Before he could stutter out a response, the doorbell rang. Tina got up to answer it, and I heard her cheerful voice from the hallway. "Cody, what a lovely surprise." Ryan's face went from panic to full-blown terror. Cody stepped into the dining room, holding a folder and looking like the definition of professional. He apologized for the interruption and explained that he had some paperwork Ryan needed to sign before Monday. Tina, ever the gracious hostess, insisted he stay for cake later. Ryan tried to hustle Cody out the door, but Ralph stopped him. "No need to rush," he said. "We're all family here. You can take care of work stuff right at the table." Cody sat down in the open seat next to me, the one I'd saved on purpose. Ryan, now gripping his fork like it had personally betrayed him, stared holes into the tablecloth. Ralph, still in his quiet dad way, asked Cody how the big presentation had gone, the one Ryan supposedly led. Cody hesitated for half a second, glanced at me, then looked at Ryan. Something passed between us. I gave a subtle nod. "The presentation went well," Cody said carefully. "Our boss presented it with support from the team." Ralph frowned. "That's not what Ryan told me." Cue the silence. I decided to keep it going. "So Cody," I asked, "how's Ryan's promotion coming along?" Cody shifted awkwardly. You could tell he didn't want to throw Ryan under the bus, but he also didn't want to lie to an entire family. He mumbled something about internal restructuring. Ryan jumped in with a loud fake laugh and tried to steer the conversation toward sports, but Kayla wasn't letting it go. "What's your actual job title, Ryan?" she asked Cody. Arms crossed. Silence again. Then Cody finally said it. "Ryan's an administrative assistant in the marketing department." Ralph slowly put down his fork. Grandma let out a small humph. Kayla muttered something that sounded a lot like "I knew it." Ryan panicked. He launched into full spin mode, claiming Cody was confused, that he had multiple roles, that things were complicated. But it was unraveling fast. Every follow-up question chipped away at his fantasy. When did you get promoted? I didn't. Why did you say you had a team? I don't. What about your corner office? Tina tried to change the subject, suggesting we eat some cake and talk about happier things. She headed to the kitchen, trying to restore some sense of normalcy. But Kayla wasn't done. She turned to me. What restaurant were you talking about earlier? This was it. I took a breath. Ryan invited me to meet his work friends. All night he belittled me, made comments about how I looked, dumped me in the middle of dinner, at the table, and walked out, leaving me with a $347 bill. Dead silence. Ryan tried to cut in, but Ralph raised a hand. Let her finish. Ryan's defense was that I was being dramatic, that I embarrassed him by not fitting in with his colleagues, that leaving me with the bill was to teach me financial accountability. His grandma literally snorted at that. Cody, quiet until now, spoke up again. He confirmed everything I said, and then, like the final nail in the coffin, he pulled out his phone and showed everyone the text thread between him, Leonard, and Pablo. They were laughing about how Ryan had put me in my place. Right then, Tina returned with the cake. She set it down completely unaware of the emotional nuke that had just gone off in her dining room. What did I miss? She asked. Another pause. Then Ralph, voice low and heavy, said, we need to talk as a family, about honesty. Ryan exploded. He went full tantrum mode, accused me of manipulating his family, called Cody a traitor, claimed everyone was just jealous of his success. What success? He knocked over his water, pointed at me, and yelled, a girl like you should be grateful I even gave you a chance. Gasps around the table. His grandma muttered something I'm 90% sure was a curse. Kayla just shook her head, like this wasn't even surprising. I stayed calm, somehow. The only thing I'm grateful for, I said, is finally seeing who you really are. Ryan stormed out, slamming the door so hard one of Tina's decorative plates fell off the wall and shattered. Afterward, the room felt peaceful. Tina kept apologizing over and over. Ralph looked tired and sad. Kayla helped mop up the spilled water. Cody offered a quiet apology too, saying he couldn't stand by while Ryan kept lying. And then the strangest thing happened. Instead of asking me to leave, they invited me to stay for cake, so I did. Ryan's ex-girlfriend, his coworker, and his entire family, eating birthday cake, without the birthday boy. In any other universe, it would have been the most awkward thing imaginable, but somehow, it wasn't. When we were done, I helped Tina clean up in the kitchen. She was heartbroken, not just over what Ryan had done to me, but over realizing what kind of person her son had become. She asked me quietly if there had been warning signs. I told her the truth. There were, I just didn't want to see them. As I was leaving, Ralph pulled me aside. He thanked me for being honest, and apologized for what his son had put me through. He looked so lost, like he was trying to figure out where everything went wrong. Cody offered to walk me to my car. I think he could tell I needed a moment. On the way, he told me more, how Ryan had been causing problems at work for months, faking emails, taking credit for other people's work. He was already on his final warning. If he messed up again, he was gone. Suddenly, Ryan's desperate need to project success made a lot more sense. Almost made me feel sorry for him, but not quite. I thanked Cody, got into my car, and drove home, drained, but relieved. When I walked in the door, I saw 3 missed calls. Vanessa, checking in. I was about to call her back, when my phone buzzed with a new message. Ryan, you ruined everything. This isn't over. I didn't respond. I blocked his number. Then I made myself some tea, curled up on the couch, and just breathed. I should have been scared, or upset, but honestly, I felt calm, and for the first time in a long while, proud. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, everything exploded. Sunday morning after the birthday dinner, I woke up to a phone that looked like it was having a panic attack. 13 missed calls. 13. At first, I genuinely thought someone had died or there'd been an emergency. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the notifications. 5 missed calls from Tina. 3 from Kayla. 2 from Cody. 3 more from numbers I didn't even recognize. I called Tina first. Her voicemails had just been variations of, Sabrina, please call me, it's important. She answered on the first ring, her voice frazzled and panicked. Apparently after Ryan's dramatic exit from the birthday dinner, he'd gone on a full-blown spiral. At 2 a.m., He showed up drunk at his ex-girlfriend's apartment, one I didn't even know existed, ranting about how I had destroyed his life. Naturally, she was freaked out and called Kayla, who had to go pick him up. But it didn't stop there. While the rest of us were sleeping off the emotional hangover from the night before, Ryan had gone on a texting rampage. He sent unhinged messages to just about everyone we knew. He messaged Cody threatening to ruin him professionally. Good luck with that when you're already on the verge of being fired. And then the real kicker, he posted this long unhinged rant on Facebook about how he was surrounded by snakes and would make everyone regret betraying him. But the worst part, he sent my home address to Pablo in a private message. Along with the words, "She's going to pay for what she did." Pablo surprisingly turned out to have a sliver of decency. He immediately forwarded the message to Tina, who went into full panic mode and started calling everyone, especially me. When I got off the phone, I just sat there in stunned silence, hair a mess, still in my worn-out pajamas, sitting on a couch covered in popcorn from the night before. I should have been terrified, but I just felt tired, like when your phone battery sits at 1% for hours, and you're just waiting for it to die already so you can plug it in and move on. Tina insisted on coming over to check on me. I tried to protest, but she wouldn't take no for an answer, and she brought Kayla with her. Cue me scrambling to panic clean the apartment. Nothing like knowing someone's mom is about to walk into your living space, to suddenly notice how many socks are on the floor and how the mirror still has toothpaste spots on it. I shoved laundry into closets, wiped down counters, and tried to make the place look less like a crime scene of heartbreak. When the doorbell finally rang, it wasn't just a quick check-in. Tina and Kayla came bearing coffee and pastries from that bakery near their house. Honestly, if I ever miss anything about being connected to Ryan, it's going to be those pastries. We sat at my tiny, slightly wobbly kitchen table while they filled me in on everything that had happened overnight. Kayla said this wasn't even Ryan's first time pulling stunts like this. Back in college, he'd told everyone he was on the baseball team. He wasn't. He'd made up a whole fake relationship with a popular girl who didn't even know his name. He had a pattern. He'd always built these alternate versions of himself that were more successful, more impressive, more admired. While they were filling me in, my phone kept buzzing. Vanessa was calling, then texting, then calling again. Apparently she saw Ryan's meltdown on social media and was now in full protective best friend mode. She wanted to come over immediately with her boyfriend, who happens to do kickboxing, just in case. She's watched way too many true crime shows. And then, the doorbell rang again. For a split second, all of us froze. Was it him? Kayla peeked through the blinds and let out a long breath. It's Cody. He'd come to warn me in person. Apparently, Ryan had been blowing up his phone all morning too, and since Ryan had mentioned paying me a visit, Cody wasn't taking any chances. So now we were five: me, Ryan's mom, his sister, his coworker, and me, all sitting in my living room, on a Sunday morning, trying to figure out what to do about a man-child on a meltdown tour because he got caught in his lies. If it wasn't so stressful, it would have been comedy gold. Cody said their boss had already heard about Ryan's social media tirade. Someone had screenshotted and forwarded it. Work on Monday was going to be interesting. Kayla was worried he might do something really stupid, especially if he lost his job on top of everything else. And that's when it happened. Another knock. This time, it was the building manager. He looked incredibly uncomfortable. Apparently, Ryan had been downstairs, causing a scene in the lobby. He was yelling, demanding to be let up to my apartment. The manager refused, bless him, and told Ryan if he didn't leave, the police would be called. Ryan eventually stormed off, but not before shouting that I was a liar at full volume, loud enough that my neighbor on the first floor heard the whole thing. Tina looked absolutely mortified. She just kept repeating, I don't know what happened to him. He wasn't always like this. She looked so heartbroken it made me feel bad for her, because no parent wants to see their child become this person. Kayla was more logical. She told me to start documenting everything, just in case. As we were discussing next steps, my phone buzzed with another notification. Ryan had tagged me in an Instagram story. Everyone in the room told me not to look, but of course, I looked. It was a photo of me from 2 years ago, passed out on his couch, mouth open mid-snore. Captioned, Miss Perfect, who ruined my birthday, isn't so perfect after all. A girl like her should be grateful someone took pics of her. That was his big revenge? An unflattering photo from 2 years ago? I actually laughed. Tina looked confused, but I couldn't help it. If that was his big move, I was going to be just fine. We were still laughing about it when, bam bam bam, a loud pounding on the door, then his voice, "I know you're in there, open the door." Cody jumped up immediately, all protective energy. I was already on the phone with building security. Pro tip, pay extra for an apartment, with decent security. Worth it. Ryan kept pounding, yelling. My neighbor peeked out again, phone in hand. By the time security showed up, Ryan had moved on to kicking the door. The security guard didn't play around. He told Ryan to leave, or the cops would be called. There was some yelling, but eventually it went quiet. The guard knocked gently, and told me Ryan had left the building, but he was still in the parking lot, possibly waiting. Tina looked shattered. She insisted on going down to talk to him herself, and honestly, I was relieved to let her. Maybe hearing it from his mother would knock some sense into him. She was so upset that Ralph, Ryan's dad, had to come pick them both up. It was just sad. After they left, Cody and I sat in silence for a while. Then he broke it with, "Do you have any wine?" Luckily I did, a bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. This definitely counted. We split it, decompressing from the emotional hurricane. When Cody left a few hours later, I was completely drained. Vanessa came over that night, and stayed, just in case Ryan decided to come back. He didn't. We ordered pizza, watched trashy reality TV, and tried to laugh about the ridiculous mess my life had turned into. Over the next few weeks, things began to shift. Ryan got fired. No surprise there. After 3 days of no shows, and sending inappropriate emails to coworkers, his boss finally cut ties. He moved back in with his parents, temporarily. Tina told me that herself. Yes, she still sends me holiday cards. Sweet but awkward. Kayla and I stayed in touch. She's actually kind of amazing. We grab coffee sometimes. Ryan, however, kept trying to contact me. Voicemails swinging between sobbing, anger, and weird nostalgia. I saved them all, just in case, but never replied. He made some fake Instagram accounts to message me. Super subtle ones like "big mistake girl." The typos gave him away instantly. Blocked. The strangest moment? Running into him at Target about a month later. I was in the home aisle comparing shower curtains when I saw him, holding a pack of socks, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Our eyes met, and then, he turned around and walked out. Left the socks, the cart, everything. That was 3 months ago. Since then, Ryan moved out of state to live with his uncle, according to Tina. His social media? Silent. Kayla says their parents finally stopped enabling him, and told him to get help before they'd support him again. As for me, I'm doing well. My apartment finally feels like mine. I replaced everything that reminded me of him, rearranged the furniture, cleansed the energy. The weirdest twist of all? Cody and I became friends, not dating. Vanessa keeps trying to make that happen, but we text, grab lunch, and send each other dumb TikToks. It's nice having someone who understands the whole Ryan saga firsthand, someone who gets why I now have trust issues the size of Texas. Looking back, I'm not just angry, I'm weirdly grateful, not for Ryan, but for finding out who he really was before I moved in with him, or committed to anything long term. Imagine if I hadn't known. Shudder.